George Eustice, who joins me now, in terms that we can all get our heads around what exactly has been achieved in Glasgow in this particular area. Secretary of State, good morning.
Well, good morning. We've actually got an agreement with over 100 countries now supporting a pledge that we will halt the loss of forests by 2030. And it includes commitments from countries like Canada, but also Russia, and crucially as well, Brazil, which obviously is responsible for the Amazon. And then underpinning that, we've done something that hasn't been done before, and that's we've mobilised pledges of finance from both governments, but also from the private sector, which together means there's around £15 billion that underpins projects to deliver on this pledge to protect rainforest, to protect forest, and also to enhance and plant new forest as well.
Hopefully I can use this expression still. I'm not wishing to cause any offence, but I understand there's quite a thriving black market in this production in Brazil. How is that to be? I know we're sitting here in the United Kingdom, but how is that to be policed, Secretary of State?
Well, alongside this, we've also got commitment from 28 countries, including some of the largest economies in the world, to do much more around due diligence in their supply chains. And if I can explain what I mean by that, it means that here in the UK, big manufacturers who use palm oil, for instance, in chocolate, we're passing a law that means they're going to have to make sure that the palm oil they buy has been sustainably produced and isn't linked to illegal deforestation, which is a major problem. Around 30% of all of the forest loss is actually illegally felled trees. And what we want to do is get other countries to do that as well. 28 have committed to do similar actions. And if we can get the major economies of the world really focusing on the sustainability of their supply chains, that will help deal with this problem.
Some might find it a little bit rich, Secretary of State. We're having this conversation in the United Kingdom. When daylight breaks, the chainsaws will start again and we'll be felling woods and parts of forests in the Chilterns and Buckinghamshire for HS2, won't we?
Well, we've got obviously our own commitments in this country when it comes to trees.
We will be felling trees. We've already felled trees in Eustice. We're felling trees through the Chilterns and Buckinghamshire, and now we're lecturing the world on deforestation. Bit rich, isn't it?
Yes, well, look, it is the case that, and then it's very important to note, this isn't banning the felling of all trees. This is basically no net loss in forests by 2030. And for the UK, we've committed to plant 30,000 hectares of new trees each and every year by the end of this Parliament. So we're also looking through the planning bill at how we can strengthen protections, not just for ancient woodland, but also strengthen protections as well for older woodland that's, maybe 100 plus years old, but should have more protection than it has today. So we're looking at protections. We've got big ambitions to plant more trees, but this pledge and our own policy doesn't mean that you would never cut down a single tree. Sometimes, sadly, you need to when you've got infrastructure projects of that sort. We try to avoid cutting down as many trees as we can, but occasionally you will get these requirement to do so because of projects.
You're head of the Environment Department here in the United Kingdom. When you heard the sort of warnings that came from the Secretary-General of the UN, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Sir David Attenborough, the President of the United States, and others, do you agree with that level of gloomy forecast?
Well, my own view is this, of course, this is a huge threat. And if we do nothing, then we will see 3 degrees of warming by the end of this century. The big focus we've got is to try to keep, to limit that increased warming at 1.5 degrees. That was something that was set out at Paris. It's something we want to build on here at Glasgow and make sure we get the commitments to keep 1.5 alive, as people say. This is a major challenge. We do need to come together, but I'm also a great believer that you have to offer people hope that we can do this, because we can do this. Here in the UK, we've reduced our carbon emissions over the last 20 years by 40%.
There wasn't a lot of
we
hope
can do
yesterday,
this and we can go further.
There wasn't a lot of hope yesterday, Mr. Eustice.
Well, this is the start of a conference, and it is about underlining the importance of action. And so you have to strike that balance between giving people, making people understand the importance of bold action, which is what we've been doing, but also we need to give people hope that we can achieve this, and I think we can.
But if it is as grim as some were saying yesterday, I don't need to remind you, this is COP26. What have 25 COPs done before it? Clearly nothing.
Well, the Paris COP 5 years ago was a big step forward where countries did make commitments, and we've been building on that.
24 that have done sweet nothing, and we have two that might, one that has and one that might. Not a great record, is it? I mean,
I don't think it's fair to say they've done.
In fairness, this would be, if this was football, this would be Norwich, wouldn't it?
I don't think it's fair to say they've done nothing. But it is obviously the case that when you've got a big multilateral forum of this sort, bringing together countries from around the world, countries with different challenges, different agendas, getting global agreement on these things is always going to be difficult. But because it's difficult, shouldn't mean we give up trying to make a change. And I think actually significant progress has been made over the last 5 years at each of those COPs. Some progress has been made, but we're really hoping here at Glasgow to get a big breakthrough. What we've achieved on forests today is actually really quite significant and bodes well for the rest of the conference.
A number of the newspapers are focusing on how some of the world leaders and others chose to get there. Do we really need somewhere in the region of 200 to 300 private jets, a motor convoy for the president of 22 cars and a fleet of helicopters? This is rather hypocritical, isn't it, Secretary of State?
Well, look, it's always possible to see it in those terms, and of course people will make those sorts of claims.
Mr. Eustice?
Well, I see it I take a slightly bigger picture view on this, which is we're only going to tackle this challenge if we get governments around the world to make the right commitments and take the necessary steps to hit them. And I think having an event like this over 2 weeks, where the world works together on a shared endeavour, is actually an important thing to do.
They seek
well,
to
that does require
us.
people to travel.
I know, and they lecture the good people of Cambourne and Redruth as they arrive in convoys of 22 cars, private jets that are gobbling up goodness knows much hard carbon dioxide, and helicopters flying them as they drive, and they lecture us, and we're not even meant to have a 1 week skiing trip in France. It's ludicrous, isn't it?
Well, I don't accept that we lecture people about what to do. What we're actually doing as a government is setting an ambitious objective of getting to net zero by 2050, setting important staging posts along the way, supporting the kinds of technologies that will get us there, and trying to decarbonise our electricity, and committing to plant more trees and making available the funding to do that. So it's not really about lecturing people about how they should live their lives, but it is about having the right policy agenda at government level to achieve what we need to achieve.
But isn't there a danger, this level of hyperbole, you could actually put people against you, not least, say, Jewish people who listen to the Archbishop of Canterbury? Those comments were unforgivable, weren't they, Secretary of State?
Well, look, they were probably unwise, and obviously he's withdrawn them and apologised, for those comments.
Unwise, I think.
Well, of course, it's not. Look, it's not obviously not something I would use. Climate change is an important challenge. There are risks to our planet, to our environment, and of course to communities as well through things like flooding. But look, he's apologised for those comments.
OK, a couple of last things. The motorways, the so-called smart motorways, others call them other things, there will now be a pause for that. There will be a halt. A reaction. I appreciate it's not actually your brief, but you will have people in Cambourne and Redruth who use motorways. Your reaction to that, Secretary of State?
Well, obviously, look, I've seen the outline of this report that's come from the Transport Select Committee. I think my colleagues in the Department for Transport will obviously consider it very carefully. It does raise some serious concerns. They will respond to that report, in due course, and obviously take very seriously some of the issues that have been raised in it.
Shouldn't this have been delayed a little earlier, though, Secretary of State?
Well, look, I think at the moment this is something that my colleagues in the Department of Transport are considering. So I think it's too early to say, whether there will be a delay and what the response will be. This report's just come out, and obviously it will be considered very closely.
Finally, in your role, of course, of Food, Rural Affairs and Environment, has peace broken out with the French as regards fishing?
Well, we very much welcome the fact that, yes, France has now confirmed that they won't implement some of the threats or all of the threats that they made last Wednesday. We think that's welcome. We continue to take the view that what was agreed a year ago, we will respect and abide by. We've already issued some 1,700 licences. For the remaining few that haven't yet been able to demonstrate a track record of fishing in Jersey waters, we've always said we've got a an open door to consider new evidence should they be able to bring it forward.
Grateful for your time as ever. Thank you, Environment Secretary George Eustice, appearing here at LBC, where the time is 1 minute after 8. News is next.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 8 o'clock, more than 100 world